The Zathari colony ship Whisper of Stars had been drifting through the void for 3 standard cycles when its navigation systems finally gave out completely. What remained of the crew, 12,000 souls fleeing the Dominion's systematic purge of their homeworld, had watched their fuel reserves dwindle to nothing, their hope following close behind. Captain Veltara stood on the bridge, her secondary arms trembling as the proximity alarms began their final song. They were caught in a gravity well, and there was nothing left to do but pray to gods that had abandoned them long ago. The planet below was blue and green, marked as primitive on their outdated star charts. A pre-contact world. Landing there meant violating a dozen galactic treaties, risking contamination, possibly dooming both their people and whatever civilization existed below. But the alternative was death in the cold dark. "Prepare for emergency descent," she whispered, her translator failing to capture the resignation in her voice. The ship screamed through Earth's atmosphere like a dying star, breaking apart as it fell. Escape pods scattered across the North American continent, streaking through the night sky like wishes that would never be granted. Veltara's pod crashed into a forest in what the natives called Montana, the impact driving her into unconsciousness. She woke to find a creature staring at her. It was bipedal, mammalian with only 2 arms and the most expressive face she had ever seen. The human, for that's what it was, held some kind of primitive projectile weapon, but its stance was uncertain, curious rather than aggressive. Behind it, more humans emerged from the trees, their vehicles primitive but functional. "Easy there," the first human said, though Veltara's translator was too damaged to render the words. "Nobody's gonna hurt you," the weapon lowered. A hand extended instead. The phone call reached President Mitchell at 3:47 a.m. By dawn, the world knew humanity was not alone, and their first interstellar visitors were refugees fleeing genocide. The debates that followed were predictable. Some nations argued for quarantine, others for deportation once the Zathari could repair their ships. The galactic laws were clear. Primitive worlds were off limits. Surely someone would come to collect these people and restore order to the violated protocols. But then the videos started circulating. A Zathari child, no more than 3 in human years, being pulled from wreckage by a Montana firefighter who wept as he carried her to safety. Zathari families huddled in emergency shelters, wrapped in blankets donated by local communities, drinking hot soup prepared by church volunteers who couldn't pronounce their names but learned them anyway. A Zathari engineer with a shattered leg, being treated by a trauma surgeon in Seattle who worked for 18 hours straight because, as she told reporters, a patient is a patient. The UN called an emergency session. The vote was expected to be contentious, divided along predictable geopolitical lines. Instead, it was nearly unanimous. Earth would grant asylum. "Let them come for our refugees," the president told the joint session of Congress, her words broadcast to every corner of the globe. Let them try. The Dominion arrived 6 weeks later. Their dreadnought, the inevitable judgment, was a kilometer of weaponized intimidation that made every piece of military hardware Earth possessed look like a child's toy. It took up position in high orbit, its presence a shadow across the daylight sky. The message was simple: return the Zathari or face consequences. Captain Veltara stood in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by human military leaders whose technology was laughably inferior to the weapon currently aimed at their world. She had argued for hours that they should surrender, that humanity should not risk extinction for refugees they'd known for mere weeks. With respect, "Captain," General Okonkwo said, his dark eyes steady, "that's not how we do things here." Every military installation on Earth went to alert status. Fighter jets that couldn't reach orbit scrambled anyway. Submarines carrying nuclear weapons, horrifying, primitive, beautiful in their terrible simplicity, surfaced and opened their missile tubes to the sky. Radio arrays that had been searching for alien life for decades suddenly began broadcasting a single message in every language and mathematical sequence they could devise. "The refugees are under our protection. Leave now." The Dominion's response was a weapons lock. From 800 hastily constructed positions across the planet, every laser, railgun, and missile humanity could bring to bear trained on the inevitable judgment. They would lose. Every simulation said so, but they would make the Dominion pay for every meter of atmosphere. Veltara watched humans prepare for a war they couldn't win. For people they barely knew and understood something that her species had forgotten, that mercy wasn't a weakness to be exploited, but a principle worth dying for. The standoff lasted 47 hours. It ended when 17 other species, some minor, some major powers in galactic politics, sent their own ships to Earth, not to enforce the Dominion's demands, but to stand with humanity. The galactic community had been watching Earth's broadcasts, had seen how a primitive world treated those who fell into their care. The message was clear. If the Dominion wanted the Zathari, they would have to go through everyone. The inevitable judgment withdrew. 5 years later, the Zathari settlement in Montana had grown into a small city, a blend of human and alien architecture that had become a symbol of Earth's new role in galactic affairs. The Zathari had shared their technology, carefully, gradually, as friends rather than subjects. Captain Veltara, now Ambassador Veltara, stood at the settlement's memorial, where the names of those lost in the Exodus were carved in both Zathari script and English. A human child, no more than 6, placed flowers at the base, a tradition that had somehow become shared between the species. Why did you do it? Veltara asked the question she'd asked 100 times in 100 different ways. Why risk everything? The child's mother smiled. Because when someone falls, she said, you help them up. That's just being human. Veltara's translator had long since been repaired, but she wondered if it could truly capture the meaning of those words. Perhaps some things transcended technology. Perhaps some things were simply understood.